and welcome to another lyrical breakdown with me, your lady friend, Bonnie. I hope you guys are doing well. I'm doing well. It's almost Friday, or at least when I'm recording, it's almost Friday, so I'm excited. It's been a busy week. So, welcome to the show if you're new here, and if you're not, welcome anyways. So this week I am doing a lyrical breakdown that comes as a request, and for anybody else, that you can definitely leave any song requests that you want me to break down in the comments down below, and I will check them out and potentially do them one day. So this time I am doing the request, which was given to me by Miles B. So thank you very much for that. And he just wanted me to do this song, and so here I am doing it for you. And so it is Adrift by Cise Starr. I don't know. I think it's, I don't know which one it is. There's not a lot of information about him exclusively, at least online, maybe in books or articles or something, if you guys know of anything, because I was having like a really difficult time finding very much about him and this song actually. So I know that he's a member of Cine, so it's CYNE, which stands for Cultivating Your New Experience, and that he is a Floridian rapper. So he's there's two or three members of the Cine group. And again, I didn't find, I seem to encounter this more often than not, almost. I can't find the release date for a lot of these songs or these albums, whether they were on a mixtape or whether they came out as a solo track or as a single or whatever, or when the albums came out, because I don't know, I keep finding such a mix of dates, there's not an accuracy. So I just wonder if somewhere out there is Universal or I guess not Universal, but any of the big or small companies that put out these albums, they should have a track list on their record, or something, or on their website. I mean, it's, I don't know. I just wish there was some sort of accuracy out there. But I was finding for this song, I couldn't find it on any album, and then I found that it was maybe on one album, and then I looked up that album, and that's this song wasn't on the album, so I was confused with that. I saw that it came out March 1st, 2010, and I also saw dates for 2005, and then there was a lot of in between number. I have no idea when this came out, so probably somewhere in the mid 2000s. So something like that. So yeah, anyways, I'll get started. It's not a super long song, but there's some interesting things to talk about. So let's jump into it. For those of you who are new here, I'm not an expert or anything like that. This is just my opinion and educated guesses as to what was being discussed and why he's talking about certain topics. And I'm not going to play the full song, just a little clip of it now.
It goes right through and change your faces. Doublespeak all the time and your message ain't clear. The real.
So it starts off, verse 1. Sadly, I never understood the things around me, never understood the inner to the hour. Found me deep till I'm drifting slowly. My mind is so lonely. Tried to listen, but the preacher told me, pour me a drink, make it a double, sir. Yes, I'm going to tip you well, where heaven and earth, pleasure, hurt, love, meld. So it's interesting. It starts off interesting. So he never really understood the world that's around us, and I think that that's something that most people, when you stop and think about it, there's so much that we just don't understand about the world around us, about anything, about why, about how things work, about what they're used for, how everything, there's so many things that no human's ever going to learn everything, and so there is so much around us that we don't necessarily understand. And when you think of the composition of the fabrics around you, or how things are dyed, or how things are created or molded or shaped, and it's just or even how how's anything made? I mean, I guess there's that show, How's It Made? So thank goodness for that. But yeah, anyways, I feel like I'm just rambling on. But you know what I'm talking about. There's a lot that nobody understands. And then he talks about the inner hour, which I wasn't 100% sure as to what that means, but I think that maybe it just shows like your time, like on earth, like your inner time is, is precious. And I guess so maybe don't waste it, or don't, use it wisely. And, again, those are my thoughts. And I think his spirit isn't necessarily tethered to anything, that he isn't 100% like pulled into like his religion, or at least at the moment he's maybe, I don't know if he's necessarily having doubts, but I think that he's kind of just like, why bother? I could think it's more like that. So I think that this song definitely has a, kind of like, at least partly, there's a lot of religious kind of inspirations, and I think that he is kind of trying to figure out what he believes, how he believes, and if the current choice is the best choice for him, or if he can kind of incorporate other things, which I think is kind of, for me, at least for me personally, I think it's the best thing to do, is just to take kind of like the best of all of the religions and just kind of make your own sort of, and just kind of go by those values, as long as they're like the good parts of everything. But I think all religions have some good value to them, at least for teaching morals and things like that. But anyways, so he's obviously having some issues with his religion. And he's doing the right things, he's going to church and whatever, but even like he can't necessarily believe what the preacher has to say, because he's kind of like a little scandalous, I guess. And I think that maybe also like his, like the preacher's message doesn't necessarily sink in, like he's distracted by other things, or like he's not giving his full sermon. And Cise Starr is having difficulties taking it all in, I guess. He's just not like focused on like his words. And I think he also talks about like the sinful things, without even thinking necessarily about like why we're doing them. And I think he talks, he mentions that the bartender or the waitress or whatever will be tipped well. And I wasn't sure if it was supposed to be the preacher that was saying that, or if this was him and his thoughts, or like what was going on in his head. So I think that like there was like some kind of mystery there. I don't know if it was mystery, but like I didn't understand who was saying it necessarily. And then he describes this place where all these things come together, like this love and the hate and pain and pleasure and everything is all going to be in like one place. So I think that he's kind of talking, again, like there's kind of a religious sense to this. I think he's maybe talking about like limbo, or like I don't really know. Like it's just sort of like this like middle ground where you're not quite in heaven, you're not quite in hell, and you're kind of getting the best of both worlds, or the whatever. Crazy talk? Nah, this is the old religion. Fuck the plasma television. All I want is clearer vision. Yes, I need somebody because the pain is open. Pop only call when he need money chosen. Goddamn, but I need another. So goddamn. Sorry, grown man, but I need another. So goddamn, where's my fucking brother? Yes, I miss my mother. This is an old religion, a deeper meaning of teaching. My eyes are open, thinking the feeling is just believing. So you may think that he's kind of, that what he's saying is nonsense, or like what he's talking about. But I think he's of the mind where you just use your imagination and you can create a clearer vision in the world, and you can follow that vision, and you can use that vision to be like, the great inspiration for yourself. I think that's what he's kind of talking about. He's searching for himself, and he doesn't want to be distracted by TV and things like that. He just wants to be able to focus on like his inner thoughts, I think, which is great. So he is, he mentions that he's in the need of love because he's in pain. I don't know what he's going through, but he's obviously going through something here. He's kind of in doubt. And like I said, he's not sure of himself. And his father only reaches out to him when he wants money from him, which is not necessarily love. because they may only be spending time with you because they want something from you and not necessarily because they enjoy it and they I don't know, that they want to do it, I guess. So I think he's a little bit bitter about that fact that his father only reaches out to him when he's broke and needs something from him. So, I mean, obviously he's having some, when he talks about like even though the fact that he's grown up, he's having, he still needs his father. He needs that father figure. He needs that, person that can be there for him. And he talks about the fact that he misses his mother. And I looked that up and I think that she had passed away. So clearly he's lacking some parental figures. I don't know how long it's been since either one have, I don't know where he's at necessarily in life. If he's just on his own or how long he's been on his own, or, if he went through foster care, if his dad kind of like left or like what happened. But yeah, or like how long his mom had been, had passed away. So yeah, it sucks. He definitely needs somebody, especially like when you're like down and you just kind of need somebody that understands you and like has been there for like your whole life and knows what you're going through and who you are at your core. So I think that he's definitely lost at this point. And I guess he's studying religions, and I think that's kind of why he's talking about like it's more than just saying that you believe it or acting in a certain way. Like you have to like fully like believe like the religion and like the god or gods that you choose to follow. And I think that he's not just looking at like the current things. I think he's also looking at the history of religions and of like religious figures, and not just Christians, but of the world religions. And I think that he's kind of interested in more spiritual awakening, which I think is something that he feels that he needs, which is a really interesting thought. I feel like this isn't something that I've covered before, so I think it's great. Adrift, like my relationship with others, never get it right. I'm too selfish, undercover, want to change my ways, but it takes a long time. But at least I'm aware it's myself I want to find. Bring it to the utmost, and the strong will survive. Not the strong in the arm, but the strong of the mind. Treat you how I treat myself. Yeah, I know the golden rule, but if I treat myself like shit, what am I to do? Treat you how I treat myself. Yeah, I know the golden rule, but if I treat myself like shit. So I think this is great. So when you're adrift, you're kind of floating. I think that's just what it means. And I think that's exactly what he's going through. He's not on solid ground. He's not tied to anything. There's nothing that's linking him, that's kind of grounding him. So I think that's kind of, his overall issue. And he doesn't really seem bothered by the fact that he kind of keeps going from like girl to girl, and never really looking inwards to see like what his own faults are or why he keeps finding or just like finding like these kinds of girls, or that he can just kind of use, or like he just can't let them in, or like there's something like, and he talks about the fact that he's selfish under the covers. So I think that he's maybe selfish in bed, and he only wants, you got to give a little to get a little. So, so he can't just be like that. And I think that that's kind of something that he's realizing, I guess maybe in his like, meditations and his inward lookings. So he's basically saying it takes a long time for people to change. So he is changing, but it is a work in progress. But he does want to kind of explore himself and really like understand like what's been going on and like the issues that are instilled in him, so he can move past them and he can forgive himself. And I think that that's it is something. It's not necessarily like, yep, okay, that's done and taken care of, let's move on to the next thing. It does take a lot of time for you to like find that personal growth and to be able to expand and accept a lot of things and know who you are fully, because we are constantly changing. So it's not a constant, like we do have to keep self-reflecting and be like, oh, this is who I am today, and every day is a little bit different. So I think that's anyways, that's my opinion. Um, but yeah, he talks about the fact that he's not necessarily strong physically, but mentally he seems like he spent a lot of time and a lot of research learning, and so his brain is strong. It's, it's pumped up. It's been worked out. He kind of questions the golden rule, which is really interesting. That kids are definitely taught to each other, this golden rule where, treat others as you would want to be treated yourself. But he doesn't necessarily see that as like a great rule to follow all the time, because he treats himself poorly because he's got so low self-worth. So it's very sad. And I think for him personally, I think, he kind of talks about like, all of this stuff in his rap and in his rhymes. So I think that rap is definitely an outlet for him, and I think that it'll help him a lot. So I think that's really good. And I think it's really interesting, again, just to kind of go back a little bit to question like how, if you treat yourself terribly, like you are going to treat people badly because you don't have that energy, that positivity to give back to the world. So, when people are closed off and angry and stuff like that, they're really not contributing to like, a great conversation, because they're just like holding back because that's how they feel on the inside. So what they're reflecting is exactly the same thing. So I think that that's an interesting point to be brought up, that that's actually like what happens. So yeah. And then we have the hook, which again is very spiritual. Cause I'm sitting by Siddhartha by the edge of the river, listening eagerly to the voices the tide will deliver. See my love flowing by, dragon vein in the sky, where heaven and earth will meet, watching Icarus fly. A cycle of events, death and rebirth, yin and yang, circling verse, born of the dust, return to the dirt. So what is it now? Yes, the world suffused with sound. Tune the earth till utopia found. Tune the earth till utopia found. So Siddhartha was, I believe, a monk, and I think it was a monk in India, I believe. And he was praying or like meditating by the river, and I believe that's where he had his enlightenment. And he was like sitting and meditating. So that's kind of like what he's doing at the same time is what Cise Starr is doing. He's looking for his inner self, so he's hoping to find himself by the river. Maybe he's at a calming place. I know he's from Florida, so there's a lot of water around. So I'm sure he can find an ocean or something to sit by, and that's great. I mean, I would love that. And sometimes it definitely takes like a few minutes just to like, just take like a few minutes aside and just, have that inner self kind of reflection and kind of look in, and because I think it is something that's important to do. I think that, we should be like, this is, to realize, and your behavior and your language and your tone, like all these things, like just to like imagine yourself in front of yourself and just like have a conversation the way you would with like, all these different people in your life, and see how you would react to yourself talking to you like that or behaving that way, or I don't know, just things like that. I think that's kind of an important kind of self-reflection, and be like, hey, like, how's my behavior? Like, should I be doing something differently? Like, should I be, more cheerful, or like, maybe like calm it down a little bit, or whatever it is. So I think that's kind of like an interesting thing to do sometimes. It's how you grow. And I think it's also just to kind of like just take that time, not be distracted, and just like listen to like your inner thoughts and your emotions, and like just like your daily feelings. So yeah. And I think it's kind of, he talks about a similar story. Well, I think he talks about like Siddhartha, who was the one who sat by the river, and he's found like his like, inner enlightenment while sitting, like I said, by the river. And I think that that's kind of like Narcissus, like how his story is kind of like how he kind of like fell into the river by or he drowned, I think, while looking at his reflection. Although Siddhartha is much more, I think he fell into the river, or he was questioning himself, or he was really looking inwards to himself in his own reflection. And I think he fell into the water, and in that where he like almost drowned. I believe he, like, it was in that time where he was so close to death that was when he was kind of pulled back and he found his enlightenment and he kind of knew what he needed to do. So, and I think that he kind of like emerges and like he's aware of everything. And I think that's kind of like symbolic, in most religions, as kind of like a baptism, as like a change, as you're now, enlightened. So yeah, I think that's cool. See, all these world religions are all practically the same. So his love is flowing, like the, I think the lightning in the sky, like the dragon's vein, I think he uses. So he wants to find that kind of true balance where he is centered, where he can just be happy with himself. So everything in his life, no matter where it's from, there's sort of like that like circle of life story that gets told to us. So, like I said, like the, earth to earth, dust to dust, like where we all just kind of come back, or it's yin and yang. It's, where you're reincarnated. There's different ways of, imagining it. But, yeah, I mean, again, world religions, a lot of them are really quite similar. So he's basically at peace, on this earth now. So I think that maybe he was talking about a time where he was more depressed or low. So I think that it was that he's over that. And I think that he now hears like the beautiful sounds of the earth and like appreciates it for being this like, for being this beautiful place, and for like being at peace, and like, being in this moment, before he can like really like move on and find, continue with his journey and find, paradise or heaven, or before he, moves on to the next level or whatever. So I think that that's, yeah, there's definitely a lot of like really interesting stuff to think about in this song. So verse 2, fuck the pretense and fuck the fakeness. I see you like a ghost right through and changing faces. Doublespeak all the time and your message ain't clear. The real reason you talk ain't a blessing endeared. We search space looking for life, but can't even help the lives of those that's hurting right here. So turn the soul searching the inner universes. The span of God encompasses the wonderful reverses. The hurt is urgent. Insurgents are sitting in your churches. So he's not going to play along and just be polite for the sake of it. He's going to like call out the fakers and like the haters and like all those type of people. And he's not just going to like sit there and put up with their shit. And he's going to like, tell you who's going to betray you, who's going to like, whose trust you shouldn't give, and, people like that, people to be wary of. So he talks about doublespeak, which is from it was a term coined from the book 1984 by George Orwell. So I would highly, highly suggest, if you have not read it, go check it out. Like, you will enjoy it. It is crazy. It's one of my favorite books. So go check it out and let me know if you enjoyed it as well. Anyways, so he's seeing through all these fake people, whatever. And he's saying, that I assume to be these haters who are making these claims against him, that they can't back their claims. They can't, they're not clear in their messages. They aren't being heard properly. Whereas, he's very clear. He's very articulate in what he talks about. And where his thoughts are and what he's trying to do with his life. And I think that that's fine. That's great. He's just being like open and honest. And even though he's kind of calling them out again, because he's saying like, even if you like come across as, like a good person, like when you're speaking, like maybe your actions don't necessarily reflect that. And I think that that's definitely like, hitting the nail on the head there. We all know people who will say one thing, but their actions don't necessarily hold up to their own standards or what they're calling other people out for. And I think we see that, almost on a daily basis, somewhere, whether it's online, whether it's, somebody in person, whether it's the news, whether it's a president or something. So yeah, there's a lot of people who aren't necessarily, following their own rules. But I think he's also saying like, he's kind of hit that topic in the first verse where the preacher wasn't necessarily sticking up to his own rules either. And I think that that's kind of something that he kind of sees throughout his life. And I think, like I said, it's something that you see quite often. So we travel into space when there's a lot that needs research on Earth. And I'm not necessarily of that mind because, like, I think, space exploration is great. But I do see that, what he's saying is that there's a lot of diseases. There's a lot of things that we can work on here. I think we're trying to do that too. I think we're just trying to give ourselves extra options, I think that's why we, explore space. Yep. And like humans explore space, I think that he also says, he says that that we need to explore our souls as much as we kind of explore like this vast void of like that's out there that is, space. I mean, that can be the same thing. That vast void necessarily can be like the same thing that is in our soul. And he talks about that God is everywhere, and that's the good thing about him, and that he's there whenever you need him, or her, however you choose to believe. And so he kind of says like he doesn't have to go to a church, and he doesn't have to prove that to know that he's a believer and that he's a good person and that he does what he needs to do and he's religious. And it is often the people who are the biggest hypocrites, and like those that, like I said, live like a less moralized life, than those who they criticize. So like it's often the people that attend church that make a big show about doing it that are probably the most that don't necessarily live up to the standards that the Bible says. And but we're all just a work in progress, right? Emotional terrorist holding all the goods for ransom. Life is ugly, so is death handsome. God is cruel, so the fire burning. Is this the higher purpose? I just can't never get it. Self became religion. Wealth, the circumcision. Greed, the proposition. Watching on television. Muslim versus the Christian. Fact and superstition. We talk but never listen. I'd like to think we're human, but some of the things we're doing in the name of higher power, blood, and fire. So people like that, like I was talking about previously, will make you feel guilty and bad about yourself and only want to receive money for their religion. So those who are like preaching and trying to get you to join their religion sometimes. So life is hard and can be ugly at sometimes. So like when you're at a weak moment in your life, the idea of death as an escape, as an out, can definitely seem appealing. I think that, most people have, had like these moments, where you're just like, wow, like this is bad. Like, I can't get out of this. Like, I don't know what I'm going to do in this situation, and I think that there's, we all have like those moments where like, oh no, like that's stupid, or those who do go through with it. And, I think that's really hard. Like that, especially when we're in like these like cities and things like that, where there's millions of people and there's so many people that are feeling alone and they're not appreciated. Like I just wish there was like a better community out there. I don't know if you know what I mean. No, I'm sure you don't. But there is community out there, but I just wish like it was easier and like. I just wish humans talk to each other, I guess. Because then people wouldn't necessarily feel bad or, not just... Anyways, I feel like I'm just going to go off on the humanity of the world, and I'll save that for another day. So I think he's just saying that God is cruel, and maybe because of all like the suffering that he allows in the world, like that's something, a common argument that God, is doing, especially like if there's, your family members hurt, if you're at war, if there's, a flooding in your house, whatever, all these things. And you're like, well, how can you let all these terrible things happen, God? So I think that's kind of why he's saying that God is cruel. Or the fires of hell are growing stronger. I think that that's maybe the world is becoming like, more corrupt, we are falling more for like the evil, the sinful things. I don't know if the humans are better or worse in today's world than they were blank amount of years ago. Fill in with, 100, 1,000, 100,000 years ago. Like, I don't know if like humans were much better or worse than we are today. There's been a lot of crazy things, but then we still hear about all these crazy things that are happening in the world. So I don't know if any, I don't really know what changes. Not to sound like a little bit of a downer, but anyways, so I think it's the music that he's making. I think the music that he's making is his purpose. I think that's kind of what it is, and I think that it's obviously that he's very spiritual, and I think that he's putting his spirit into his music as well, and I think that he's just trying to like find his purpose and trying to like be grounded and kind of like feel connected to something, and so I think that's why he's questioning a lot of things in his life, and then he talks about like kind of like upper class people are like circumcised, and that's something that I never really thought about, but I imagine that it makes sense. Your opinions? But yeah, I think I don't know. Like, I wonder what like the statistics are on that, on like whether or not more wealthy people are circumcised versus not, because yeah, I don't know. I'm thinking about that, and I think that it's probably true. But hey, let me know. But yeah, TV shows are kind of like religions, like how they're battling it out, and how, you know, like everybody's trying to get like the best stats and trying to get the best like ratings and things like that. But I think it's kind of like a questionable practice, especially, you know, it's fine for like TV shows and things like that and different, you know, channels and stations, but I think it's not necessarily the right thing for religions to do, to be like battling against each other all of the time, and everybody, I don't know, and everybody has like their own opinion, and everybody thinks that like God is on their side, but God can't be on everybody's side all the time, because there's a losing team, you know, and I think that that's, and it's not always the same team, so I think that that's, I don't know, words are stupid, but anyways, so that's just my opinion. I just think that he kind of says also that everybody has an opinion, as do I. But nobody really listens long enough to find out the truth, like behind it, and, you know, kind of where it stems from, and like if what I'm saying is true. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's all just made up and I'm just telling you lies. But I'm not. At least I don't think so. I'm just, you know, it's just my own opinion or facts. That's pretty much it. So why do we do things like this? That's what he's kind of questioning. Why do we have like this crazy behavior? Why do we have wars? Why do we want all these terrible things? Why is it so much easier to sin and have all this terrible things in the world? And I think that like our blood is kind of like lit by like these like fires of knowledge and truth, and I think that's kind of what he's questioning as well. But I think it's kind of part of it, but I think it is also kind of like I was saying before, when, you know, God can't be on everybody's side. So yep, so that is pretty much it. Then we have the hook again. I won't go through it again. It's exactly the same thing. But yeah, I mean, it's a cool song. It has a really kind of nice and gentle beat to it. It's a little bit mellow. And it still has like some, like, it sounds a little bit like Spanish-y, guitar-y. Like, I don't know. There's like a calmness to it while still being on edge, if that makes any sense. Like, it just kind of, like, it is kind of, yeah, anyways, it's a cool song. Go check it out. It's not on is it Spotify? No. I always get it wrong. Yeah, so it's not on Spotify. I had to find it on here on YouTube. So yep, that's it. So that's pretty much it. I hope you like this. If you guys want to see any other songs requested, leave those down in the comments down below. Thanks so much to our patrons, Lindell Williams, Ismail Gadamsi, Super Old School 1994, Chris Prado, and Jonathan Barnes. So thank you guys so much. For anybody interested in supporting us, you can check all the information out. It'll be down below. And we also have a Discord now, and I finally have Instagram, and I, as along with Twitter. So both are listed at Your Lady Friend Bonnie, so you can go check me out over there and add me, and I will I'm pretty sure I'll be posting a little bit more regularly on Instagram than I will on the Twitter. I don't know. I don't really tweet. But I will take some pictures and show you my world. So yeah, you can check those out. And that's pretty much it for me, guys. I hope you like this, and I hope to see you another time soon. So take care. Bye.